welcome to our lesson, to our English lesson. It's great for me to be with you here today and sharing this experience. What we're going to be doing is exploring themes in literary texts. We'll look at how to do it. We'll also look at how they relate to the literary text that you're studying at the moment. So let's start with looking at some of the terms that you're going to need to know during this lesson and after. I'm going to put them up on the board for you. So we have characters, we have characterization, plot, imagery, setting, diction, the structure of the text, and quotes. So these are some of the things that we're going to be looking in this lesson. So what I want you to do now, just for about 30 seconds to 1 minute, is turn to the person next to you and discuss with them what you know about characters, etc., etc. And you can even give examples. What's quite nice, what you might want to do during this lesson is to actually take notes. So that will be quite useful. All right, so let's go for it. Have a look at the different terms and give examples. Welcome back. Let's have a look at some of the terms that you discussed. So what we have here is we have our characters. Now, characters can be anything. A character can be a person, a character can be a figure, or even an animal. And then we have characterization, which is an extension of the character. So that's how the author paints the picture. Let me just scroll down here a little bit. All right, that's the picture that the author paints of that specific character. So they would describe what the character looks like, what the character wears, how the character speaks, what other characters say about that character. So we can learn a lot about the character like that. We also have the plot. I'm sure that many of you answered similarly, and you said a plot is a storyline and the events that take place. What's very important, particularly in your exams and tests, is that you don't focus too much on the plot. So you use the plot to give some evidence for whatever you're exploring, but that the essay you write isn't just about the plot. Like this happened, then this person did this, then this person did that. Okay, because then that's limiting exactly what you could be exploring. Then we have imagery. Now imagery or images, that's the pictures that the author creates through language. So the author could describe something, or the author could use figures of speech like metaphors or similes or personification, just to make the text a little bit richer. Then we have the setting. That's where the story is set. We have the diction. Those are the words that are chosen or used. What's quite nice to remember the word diction is to think of the word dictionary. So in the dictionary, you get words, you get diction. All right. What you also need to think about is to look at the structure of the text. How is the poem structured, or how is a short story or a novel or a play? How are they structured? Are the sentences long or short? Are the paragraphs long or short? In some cases, you can even have a one-word paragraph to emphasize something. You'd look at the stanzas and you'd look at their layout. So far, all of these are elements that you can use to support whatever answers you have. Now, very importantly, when you read a text, it's very useful to have a pen, so to annotate. And to underline or circle quotes that might be useful that you can use in your answers. And a nice way to think about it is if you have, let's say for instance, you write a 2-page essay. Think of yourself as holding a handful of quotes and sprinkling them across the page. So every sentence, every 4th sentence, every 5th sentence will have a little quote there. And remember, a quote doesn't have to be 3-4 sentences long. It can even be 1 or 2 words, just to show the reader that you've really engaged with the text. So let's have a look. Now, obviously, the main part of our lesson is a theme. All right, what is a theme? Themes are a little bit more difficult to work out because you have to use evidence around the theme to try and understand it. So when you're asked, what is the theme? You can say to yourself, well, I know a theme could be a message, it can be a subject, it can be a topic, it can be a thought, it can be an issue, an ideology, a belief, or a principle, anything that the writer wants to look at. So like, as I said, the themes aren't explicit. You will never get an author saying to you, the theme of this book is, or the theme of this novel is chance versus choice. All right, you're going to have to work that out. So that requires a little bit of detective work. Now, through time, hundreds and hundreds of years of writing, there are so many different themes that authors have explored. So we have the different examples of themes. For instance, there are many, so I'll just read out a few. We have the dangers of ignorance, cycles of oppression. We have, sorry about that. We have faith versus doubt. We've got good versus bad. Often you can see that a theme is in conjunction with another theme. So we have the contrast. Illusion of power, chaos order, loss of innocence, man against nature. Let's look at some more themes. So there's a load of themes on this list as well. Some examples, we have motherhood, we have the oppression of women, power of silence, progress, is it real or is it illusory, rebirth, oppression, etc., etc., youth and beauty. So these are our lists. And now with these lists, we're going to start an activity. Now this activity consists of 5 questions. So I'll take you through the question and then give you time to answer that. And in that time, we will be putting up the theme so that you'll be able to see them. So first things first, get into groups of 4 or 5. Get a piece of paper or each, or you can get one and share it amongst the group because it's important to take notes. And answer this question. So the question is this. Are there any themes that you recognize in these lists from any of the texts that you've read? So these texts can be the literary texts that you're studying this year or last year or even in primary school. And then once you've identified those themes that you identify with, what I want you to do is next to it, just do a hyphen and say which are the texts and take note of those. So let's go for it. I'll give you about 3 minutes and you can list those. And remember, as you're working, you can look up to the screen and I'll be putting up both of the tables with the lists in. Okay, good luck for that. How did that go? I'm sure you must have identified some themes and identified some texts, which is a useful exercise. So let's go on to question 2. For question 2, again, you're going to be looking at the same list of themes. So keep in your groups, don't move away, keep your pens, keep your papers so that you can take notes. And then look at the question. With which themes do you identify with most? Why? Share examples with your group. So look at the list of themes and say, how does that link to my life personally? Is there anything that I've experienced that linked to any one of those themes? And then tell your story about it to the rest of your group. So again, you're going to get about 3 minutes to do this. And as you're looking, I'll be projecting the different themes onto the screen so that you can reflect back on them. Okay, so good luck for this activity. Let's go. 3 minutes. Okay, well done on that exercise. I hope that you shared your stories with each other and that you got a little bit of insight into your experiences as people. So what we're going to do now is, just before we go on to the next question, we're going to have an ad break, and that will give you time to have a stretch, go get a glass of water, and when we come back, we're going to go on to the third question. All right, enjoy your break. Welcome back. You've had a stretch, you've had some water, you've done some thinking, so now we're ready to carry on with our question number 3. Again, same themes, and obviously the ones that you've added to the list as well. What I want you to do now is, in your groups, you can discuss, take a few notes, and ask yourselves, which themes are relevant to our lives now? All right, so you're sitting, it's 2016. Which themes will apply to our societies now? All right, so again, 3 minutes, make notes, share stories, think about it, and refer back to the themes, which are also going to be, again, projected against the back wall so that you'll be able to see that. Okay, have fun with this one. Okay, so you've looked at the themes that you think are relevant to your lives now in 2016. The next task is to look through the different themes and ask yourself the question, are any of these themes outdated? Do any of these themes not link in any way to our lives now? So again, let me just take you to that question. All right. So are there any themes that are outdated, that only are relevant to times long ago? All right. Take for this, I think 2 minutes should be enough for this one. Again, you'll see the different themes in front of you. If you have a little bit of a list that you've made, you can circle them, you can underline them, just to take some brief notes. And when we get back after this one, we'll go to our last question that relates to this table of the themes. All right, let's go on question 4. All right, so now finally, let's go to the last question in discussing these themes. And the last question is, obviously now you've become very familiar with the list that I've given you, but can you add themes that you have come across that haven't been added to this list? All right, so in your groups, it's just going to be a minute exercise. I want you to brainstorm and write as quickly as many themes as you can add to this list. Okay, go for it. You've got 1 minute. Okay, now finally, I hope that you all have a whole lot of pieces of paper in front of you with notes and themes and suggestions and stories shared. And I just want to share with you what I see when I look at all of these themes. I look at all of these themes and I think to myself, and I answer those 5 questions. Are there any that with which I identify? And then, yes, of course, there are many. And then, are there any that are relevant today? And I think, yeah, all of them. And then, are there any that aren't relevant? And I look through the list and I think, no, a lot of them still, well, most of them still apply to what we experience today. So for me, I look at the themes and I say to myself, themes are timeless. Hundreds and hundreds of years ago, writers were writing about issues and thoughts and ideas that we still today think of and experience and feel. And then I also look at the list and I think themes are also universal. So my experiences with that theme or the issues that the author touches on or the poet touches on is something that not only I experience here in South Africa as I sit on this chair in Randburg, but it's something that everybody across the world timelessly has also experienced. So I think we can say that themes are timeless and universal. However, and I've said this before, they are quite difficult to identify. So there is a technique that you can use as you read your books or as you read your plays or your short stories or the poems, and even if you're listening to music, because music is very, very similar to poetry. So let me show you this technique. All right, there we have timeless and universal, as I said. All right, then what you can use here is the idea that themes link to the bigger picture. So when we read a text, like I said, different types of text, poems, short stories, plays, novels, biographies, autobiographies, any type of literary text, when we read that, we look at it in the small world of the book, all right, or the poem, etc., etc. And then what we want to do is we want to think to ourselves while we're reading, we want to think to ourselves while we're reading, how does that world of the book or play relate to the bigger world of the theme? So whichever issues or stories that are happening while we're reading actually link to things and ideas, etc., that are happening in our lives. So let me give you an example. Okay. Now, I've mentioned Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. So I just want to show you how I would link the two, the play and the world around me, the real world. So here we have, we have Romeo and Juliet. We have 2 families. They're enemies. Romeo and Juliet meet, they fall in love, they get hastily married in secret, and they see their love as destiny as fate. Even Shakespeare calls them star-crossed lovers. So it's in the stars that these two lovers were to meet. Now, what happens is from their meeting, a whole lot of series of events occur, which lead to many deaths, many characters die, and ultimately leads to the suicide, the joint suicide of Romeo and Juliet. So only after the death do these two enemy families do they reunite, and they see the failure of their ways. And then finally they reunite and they reconcile. So that's the play. So we say, okay, fine. How does that relate to my world? And those, the issues that relate, those are the things that become the themes. So what do we have? We have the consequences of hasty decisions. So Romeo is a very impulsive, impetuous person. So he makes a series of very quick decisions. And what happens with those? What happens after those decisions have been made? We have the theme of fate versus chance. So Romeo and Juliet and many other characters believe that their love was written in the stars, so that's fate. Other people, on the other hand, however, say, no, it's chance. All right? Chance and choice, I think. We've got the other issues of love versus lust. Did Romeo and Juliet love each other? Were they just in love? And then we've got the other theme, love versus hate. We've got the couple who come from two enemy families and they join together. So those are the themes, and I think they can absolutely apply to particularly our situation in South Africa, where people from families that don't particularly get on, or from families that are from two different very contexts, fall in love, and you have that animosity that still stays with the parents. So let's have a look at the next slide. Okay. So you think of the idea of reading the book, translating it to how it works for you, and then you can also ask yourself, okay, when you read a literary text, ask yourself, 1, what message is the writer trying to convey? 2, what can I learn from the story? And then 3, how does the story link to the real world? So while you're reading, while you're discussing whichever literary text that you are studying in classroom or outside, keep these questions in mind. And while keeping these questions in mind, also ask yourself, how? How, when, why? And all of those how, when, why answers will become your substantiation when you discuss the themes. All right. So what I want you to do now is to discuss some, perhaps 1 or 2, you can decide, of the literary text that you are studying this year. So you will be studying a poem, a novel, a play, a short story. So choose 1 or 2 of those. And then I think it would be quite useful if you did some kind of a diagram, a circle with lines going out, a mind map, a brainstorm, and think to yourself, this is the world of the literary text. How does that apply to the bigger world? Okay, and for that, I'm going to give you a minute for each of the texts. So choose a poem, choose a novel, choose a short story, anything with which you are familiar. And take notes. Take notes as a group. Stay in the group that you are. Remember, you're in a group of about 4 or 5 people. Okay, so let's start with the 2 minutes of exploring these themes in your set with books. Welcome back from that activity. I think what will be nice about this activity is that you can keep these notes and use them as study notes for the tests and exams that you write this year. We're going to give you a little bit of a break. Again, take a stretch, glass of water, do some thinking about themes, and we will be back with another activity related to the themes. See you in a minute. You've had a break, we've looked at an advert. Now let's carry on looking at themes. What you need to think about, and I think we've spoken about it a bit, is that themes don't exist in isolation. Themes are interconnected. So when we analyze them and when we write about them, we also need to look at the other elements. Now, these other elements we talked about when we were looking at the terminology. So you look at, all right, you look at your characters, characterization, the plot, the imagery, the setting, the diction, the structure of the text, and you add some quotes. Now, remember I said to you what's very important is that you don't get stuck on plot. Okay, because often people just end up answering an entire question, whether it's about themes or imagery, and discuss the plot. So be careful of that. Be very careful of that. Try and include everything. All right. What you want to do is you want to give evidence that you know this text, you've read it, you understand it. Okay. So yeah, you need to give evidence, as I've mentioned. You need to substantiate. All right, and you need to provide quotes, all right, because it's all about strengthening your argument, all right. That's what you want to do. You want to have a strong argument. Now, let's say, for instance, you asked a question. Now, the question I'm going to look at is, again, related to Romeo and Juliet. We're just going to stick to one literary text. We're going to stick to this play. So, you're sitting in the test, you're sitting in the exam, and you're reading the question. What you must do always is to read with a pen or a highlighter. So the question is, identify one major theme in Shakespeare's play, Romeo and Juliet. Substantiate your choice by referring to the text. Now, this is a very general question. I don't think you'll get anything as general as this, but we're just using it as an example. I have my pen, I'm sitting down, and now I want to highlight what I really need to do. Number one, I need to identify. I need to identify one. Not two, not four, not five, one. A major theme. So I'm going to have to find out. I'm going to have to think about the major theme. And obviously Romeo and Juliet, that's going to be my the literary text I'm looking at. Then they ask me to substantiate. And as soon as they say substantiate, that's when they want evidence. And that's when you go back to this. This is your evidence. This is your evidence. Okay. All right. So, identify one major theme, substantiate your choice by referring to the text. Okay, so this is a nice general one, as I said. What's very useful, another technique you can use, and you can use this technique quite quickly when you're writing in a test or an exam, but you can spend a longer time on it when you're writing an essay, is to use a mind map. All right, so this is a mind map that you can use when asked to discuss a theme. So what you have is you've got your central theme here, and then you've got a branch. So this will possibly be paragraph 1. This can be paragraph 2, paragraph 3, and paragraph 4. Okay, so in each paragraph I can give evidence. I just need a sip of water. You can give evidence of characters. When you do that, give a quote. Then plot. When you do that, give a quote. Imagery. All right, and this is where it's also important that when you read, underline as you read your text. And finally, your settings. All right, so we've got a basic structure. And that takes us to, this is my mind map. Yours would need to be a little bit more detailed. All right, so the theme I've chosen, consequences of hasty decisions, which is a central theme in Romeo and Juliet. Now, I want to write about the characters first, and I want to link the characters to this theme. So I'm going to talk about Romeo. So I'll speak about Romeo's hasty decisions, his impulsivity, etc., etc. And then also in that, I will show you that Friar Lawrence, he's one of the characters in Romeo and Juliet, continually gives Romeo advice. Don't run, don't speed, slow down. Then what I'll want to do is I will want to look at the plot. I'm not only looking at the plot, because that's not going to be a strong essay, but I do need to look at the plot to support. So in the plot, what happens? Romeo and Juliet get married very, very, very quickly. There are many, many impulsive decisions that are made, and not only by Romeo, by other characters as well. Then, what imagery does Shakespeare paint? And Shakespeare's plays and poems are full of very, very rich imagery. So, images that are often used and repeated, images of the lightning, lightning speed, all right, and speed. So you get images of speed. And then, what about the setting? Where is it set? It's set in fair Verona, okay? But Verona is our divided city, okay? So there you have your basic structure for the answer that you're going to give. Let's look at something that you could do. Okay. We can do this. I think we've got enough time to actually do this now. But whatever time you have over, you can continue it. You can continue it in another class or for homework. That'll be your decision and your teacher's decision. So, I want you to choose a literary text that you are studying. Okay. You've already, in the last question, explored some of the themes that have come out of these literary texts. So now, just choose one. Just choose one of these major themes and substantiate. And this is probably one of the most important things that you have to do. I always say, when you're writing, imagine your teacher sitting on your shoulder and saying, why, how, who, when, where. So you always continuously have to say, to justify your answer, I said this because this happened, I said this when this happened, etc., etc. And then what I want you to do for this activity is also use a mind map. For this activity, we're not going to write the whole paragraph. We're just going to do the planning section of it. So let me show you the planning. You've had a look at this. Let's just go back and back again. All right, there you have it. Let me take all my scribbles off. There we go. And that can be, you can use that. Use that as your template for your diagram or your mind map. Another thing quickly before you carry on with this activity is to understand that there's a big difference between a mind map and a brainstorm. So a brainstorm is just where you're storming ideas. Just crazy, crazy ideas. No structure, no format. A mind map, on the other hand, is where you start organizing those ideas into pieces, all right? So you know that here I'm going to be doing this, here I'm going to be discussing this. And what happens there is you move from a storm to something that is really structured and where you organize and categorize your information. Again, let me take off all my scribbles. So, this is what I want you to do. I want you to choose your text. And I want you to write out this. Just very quickly, copy this onto your page. And when you have done that, let me give you 30 seconds. I'll wait for you. 30 seconds, just copy this down. So you've got your central circle. You just write in theme. And you have your branches, your 4 branches coming off from that. Now remember, you don't have to stick to this. There might be other elements you might want to discuss. You might want to also talk about diction or other elements which you may want to analyze. Okay, so feel free to add some more branches onto this. But just make sure that you do have character, you do have plots, you do have imagery, and you do have the setting. You need to give that kind of a context. Okay, so I'll give you 10 seconds just to finish that off, taking down that diagram. And then let's move on. This is when you have to learn how to take quick notes, especially when you go to university. You'll have to write really, 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 really fast. Okay, so let's have a look. There's your question. Identify a literary text you are studying at the moment. One theme, substantiate, use a mind map. So what you haven't done now, as I said, you can do it in your own time. You can do it with your teachers. You can continue working in a group. It's always nice to work in a group because you can discuss and share ideas. And what I want to end with is that when you explore themes, be a detective, okay? Answer the questions, all right? And then ask yourself as well. Ask yourself those same questions. What is the message? What can I learn? And how does the story link to the real world? And there we go. You're going to look at that. You're going to look at those aspects to substantiate. And you're going to find quotes, okay? And remember, don't quote sentences and sentences. The quotes must be just a scatter of quotes across your page, and obviously in quotation marks. And then finally, just for me to end off, this lesson's been quite focused on exams and in your class and your teacher and your textbooks. But what's exciting about literature, and I hope it's something that you can grow to love or that you do already love, is that these are things that you can read in books that are not prescribed or books that you can get out from the library. And when you read these books, as you read them, you get to know a little bit more about the world, about authors, about people. And now you have the skills and you have the vocabulary and you have the terminology to understand what the writer is saying and link that to your world, which is quite an exciting thing to do. So don't ever feel constrained or think that text is only for reading literary text is only for school. Go and explore other types of literature. Go into your library, borrow a book from a friend, so that this journey that you have with literature isn't only confined to the learning space. So I want to end by saying thank you for sharing this time with me. I've loved being part of your classroom. I hope that you found this useful, and most importantly, I hope that you take this lesson into your classroom and that it helps you with your exams, but more importantly, that you take this and make it a part of your love for literature. Lovely to be with you. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time.